2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. 5, 6, 7.
Hello, my name is Bill Haley, and this is for Haley 2024 The Movement's Government Reform Ideas. Now, this video is going to be on the judicial authority sector, how we deal with the courts. So, I am proposing a new constitution for the United States, going to a competitive governance type of government. So, people get to choose what type of governing they want. They select from about a dozen different options per sector. So, we're going to split the government power into 30 sectors. We'll go over all that in a second. So this is May of 2021, and from February through about July of 2021, I'm going to do about 3 or 4 dozen videos. I've already done maybe about 30 videos, and we're going to do about 10 or 15 more. So what we're doing here is changing the foundations of government to more liberty, more freedom, greater free enterprise, but to competitive governance. We're dramatically changing the government, but it's going to be a more modest proposal than the current system because people get to have a lot more freedom, have self-governance and family governance the way they want to. Or if somebody wants socialism, they can join a competitive governing agency that gives them more socialism, more protections if they want that type of protection. But other people, they want that freedom, and they can have that freedom within the system. So let's go over the system real quick, and then we'll get to how we deal with the courts. Because almost everything we do is going into either free enterprise, or if you want a competitive governance where it's socialized, you can have that. But we're going to have significant free enterprise into the courts, into the police, into the prisons, into the military. Every aspect of what we're doing, we're going into a dramatically more free enterprise direction. A lot more freedom. But again, if you want that socialist or if you want that government control, you can choose a CRA that gives you that control from the government, but that also comes with protection. And I understand that some people want that. Other people want that freedom. And if they fail, they suffer the consequences. Or we have a charity system to help people out if that's the case. So let's go over the system real quick, and then we'll talk about how we deal with the courts. This is also going to be one of 3 different ones I'm going to deal with the courts. I did 3 different videos on the private law enforcement, different aspects of it. This, we're going to do 3 different aspects, one dealing with civil rights. This is just the clauses dealing with the courts. And then we're going to have another one talking more generally how, in common language, how we deal with the courts. So let's go over the whole system real quick. We separate all government power into 30 sectors. Again, top level elected leaders per sector. No one person can be in charge of more than one sector at a time, at the local level, federal level, or state level. So if you're in charge of the diplomats, you're not in charge of the environment. If you're in charge of the banking, you're not in charge of family law. If you're in charge of judicial authority, which is the courts, you're not in charge of the diplomats. Again, all power is separated dramatically. A lot more checks and balances, a lot more diversified authority. So let's go over, we're going to go over all 30 of these in a second. Let's go through the system. Within each sector, we have competitive governance. You have roughly a dozen to choose from. They're called CRAs, competitive regulatory agencies, and you choose which ones you want to govern you. You choose one per sector at each level of government. Yes, 30 selections for the local, 30 for the state, 30 for the federal. Then on the other side, the exact same thing, but it's a rating agency. Rating agencies are to give high quality information from a wide variety of perspectives, but also to limit standards going so low that it gives negative externalities to the general population. We'll talk about that. It has to be significant negative externalities. The rating floors, to limit that, will give the CRAs a lot more authority, not having so much moved up to the monopolized sector board level. We still understand that there will be some at the sector board level, which is monopolized governance over everything within that sector. So it's still a lot of checks and balances. So these are full governmental systems, whether you're talking about the CRAs, competitive regulatory agencies, which are the competitive governance, or the rating agencies, all still full governments, because they still have legitimate power. But you get to choose which one. Your choice gives that one a lot more representation, or not, well, the amount of representation that you individually have. equal to every other citizen of your locality, of the state, of the federal government. So if 1% of the people move from CRA 1 to CRA 2, then that 1% representation goes from CRA 1 to CRA 2. So CRA A, or let's say CRA 1, let's say they did have 11%, they did some bad stuff, they got some bad reputation, 1% of the people moved away, so they have 10% instead of 11%. Well, their representation is only 10% going up to the sector board versus where that 1% moved to the other CRAs. So every selection comes with representation change. So you change that. But your CRA only represents and only governs you. Your neighbor CRA only governs them. So highly important to understand that. So let's go through this. We have a really great preamble to the Constitution. Really gives us direction and what we're trying to do with the whole Constitution, and that's highly important. It shows you the direction and the context for each clause within the Constitution. We have clauses dealing with citizenship, which is a citizen ownership model of government. General laws. Bylaws are internal governance within the organizations, internal organizational rules, and those are highly important. Federal, state, and local. How we deal with that. Same Constitution for all three, but using the words you're either declared a state, a federal, or a local CRA or sector or CRA structure. Original authority, and there's only one federal. There's going to be hundreds of states because we're going to change around a little bit. Lot smaller states than we currently have. I want to get somewhere between 500,000 to 1.5 to 2 million tops per state. So I want to break California into 20 or 30 different parts. Now some of the smaller ones that are below 1 million, no, we don't want them to be broken up, but we want everybody to be broken up. Again, we're not going to have a Senate and a Congress like we currently do. We will have one of those for each sector, but they're not going to have that power, and that power is going to be diversified greatly. So mostly the state's going to have the power, locality's going to have the power, the federal government's only going to have the power that to deal with foreign policy, the military and the like, but then only what the states give it. So I dramatically change what the federal government can do. So we don't have to worry about too much power going to the Democrats or Republicans or Libertarians or whatever. People are going to govern themselves. So it's highly important to understand. Original authority is dealing with what level of government has the top level of authority, and what level of the CRA structure has the top level of authority. And it also gives teaching on why we have and how we have the authority to have laws in the first place. Supermajority, anything at the monopolized level or most things, dramatically, most things have to have a 70% majority if it's going to go to a monopolized governance. That's going to keep a lot of stuff down to the CRA level and let CRAs deal with it. As long as they're not having significant negative externalities to the general population, they can govern themselves. No, there's nobody else's business. Their membership, as long as they have 5%, they can have a membership and they can govern themselves. As long as they're not putting out negative externalities and they're taking care of the purpose of their sector. So the parent sector board, how that's structured, basically to separate all 30 sectors and dividing lines. They don't have that high level authority. They don't have the authority over everybody. They just say what sector has what authority. The CRA sector board, that's a monopolized per sector, monopolized governance per sector. CRAs send representatives up, so they're made up of CRA representatives. And the 90% of this Constitution is competitive regulatory agencies. Everything else is to support CRAs, competitive regulatory agencies, which is the competitive governance. And the competitive governance, the CRAs are regulatory. They send representatives and they govern their members. So it's highly important to understand what they do. The rating system, we talked about a little bit. We'll talk about a little bit more in a little bit, but they give high quality information from a wide variety of perspectives, and they make sure standards don't get so low that civil liberties are messed with, and they protect civil liberties. They have real power. Most of it's influential power by their ratings and informing the people. But when it comes to standards, making sure they're not too low, they have some real power because we want a representatives of the people, a body of representatives of the people, making sure the standards aren't too low and throwing out a lot of negative externalities. Taxation, everything that we currently do in our current government needs to still be done to a large degree. It still needs to be paid for. How do we do that? Mostly it's going to be paying CRA fees to the CRA that you select. So when you select a CRA, you select a tax. You have to pay a fee to that CRA. So choose wisely. You get one that are really cheap. You're not going to get many services out of them. And sometimes these services are really, really important. Law enforcement services and the like. Banking services. If you get too much of a low price, they're not going to be able to give you the services needed. You're not going to get that protection from the CRA that you want. And you might want to, a lot of people are going to be paying higher prices to get better services. That's what competitive governing is. You choose, and the role of prices are going to play a big role. How we deal with the debt going from the current system to the new system, I have everything covered. We sell everything off. Everything that government owns, we're going to sell. From the battleships to the bases to the school buses to the police cars to all the roads. We sell everything, and we try to pay down that debt. And if that doesn't do it all, and it might not, even Social Security is changed over to a free enterprise system. We are responsible. I'll do a video on it soon, dealing with how we switch that over, how we're responsible. We pay off promises, but make no more promises, and we pay off that debt in the matter of a couple decades. So let's keep on going. The pockets of freedom is immigration and foreign policy. Look at that video. I already did that. States partial acceptance per sector is to help to get this thing passed. That's an amendment to the Article 5 of the Constitution. Let's go to the separation of responsibilities and authorities. List of 30 sectors. So we're going to list all 30 sectors real quick. And the charity system, we get rid of all government welfare as we know it. We go to a charity system where there is a mandate that you have to pay. The goal is you have to pay a certain fee based off of income levels and different things. And the goal is roughly $1 trillion or 5% of GDP. So there will be a funding source. Foreign protection system, every one of these will have a top leader. Currently, our president is the top diplomat, also the top commander-in-chief. We're going to have those two people separated. Two different people, one being a top diplomat, one being the top commander-in-chief. The other ones will have their top leaders also, but they're different type of sources. What you think mostly of a president now is a commander-in-chief and the top diplomat. The military will be significantly into the free enterprise system. Not all the way because we're using taxes to pay for it, but they're one buyer of goods, but done in done with certain constitutional clauses to make sure the role of prices and free enterprise gets to play a big role. Military capability system is a funding mechanism for that, and that's where the role of prices really comes in, and having the correct clauses there to allow the free enterprise system to do the best it can. Not all the way, obviously, because the money's coming from one source. But we make sure with clauses that the role of prices and competition really takes off there. Military Authorization Agency, again, this is a sector that will authorize anybody with inherent government power. So dramatic accountability there. This is what we're talking about on this video. The violent crime is definitely just defining violent crime and the prosecutors. Law enforcement is the law enforcement, the police officers, the sheriffs, and the like. Anybody holding a gun and going out there and having a badge. Law enforcement authorization, we just did a video on that. Right now we're going to do a courts. This is what we're doing now. How do we have courts? We'll do 3 different videos on that, like I said. And this one's just going to go through mainly the clauses straight through. Prisons and corrections is another sector. Again, very free enterprise on that. Very competitive regulatory agencies, and it's a system where we're going to have a lot of accountability, paying for really good results, and the role of prices are going to be key for that to get the best results. So the court system is what we're talking about today, but let's go through the other 15 real quick without too much talking about it. We got the 5 here. We got 5 here: food, education, manufacturing, human resources, identity. Identity is huge. Identity is going to be taking over a lot of responsibilities that are really going to be important. Environment, safety, transportation, which is dealing with the roads, private sector roads. Media and communication, land and water. All of these are going to encompass all of the current government functions. If you don't see it in there, it's going to fall into one of them. Most likely, Sector 27 and Sector 29 are going to take a big hunk of anything that's not listed here. It's going to fall somewhere within the 30. Competitive regulatory agencies, I'm going to say it again, it's really important to say they're full governmental systems: executive, legislative, and judicial. They regulate, they govern, and they send representatives. They're at the city, the state, and the federal levels. So it's important to understand the whole nature. So I'm 16 minutes into this. I'm setting the stage for what we're dealing with here. And this is so important that to keep on understanding this, that there's 30 sectors. You have each of the 30 sectors will have 12 distinct competitive regulatories that you choose. You have to choose one of them, but you get to select it. Then you pay the fees for that. You within your group, within your CRA, within the other members that chose that, as long as you have 5%, you get one. And then you choose the leaders, vote for the leaders within the within just your CRA. Same thing with the RAs. Let's keep on going. Violent crime mitigation system. So that's where the court system is. And every judge, every prosecutor, every defense attorney, everybody, every clerk of the court, everybody in the system, if you have inherent government power, and judges definitely do, clerks of the court definitely does, if you have inherent government power, you have to get authorized by the LEA. Highly important to understand that. Prison guards, corrections, parole officers, everybody with inherent government power has to be authorized. So, let's go through some actual clauses. The defendant's judicial authority, CRA, must supply the lawyer to the defendant in the violent crime cases. So, that's highly important to understand. Where do we get the defendant's attorney? Every person with inherent government authority within the violent crime mitigation system, and go back here real quick, they can hire their own. But if you need a public defender, you get it from your judicial authority CRA. They have to supply that. So pick wisely. If you're going to be arrested for theft or assault or possible murder or whatever, even if you didn't do it, you still need a lawyer. There's a process. Your public defender is from your judicial authority CRA. So you choose wisely. If they put the public defenders on the cheap, you're not going to get the best representation. If they put a lot more money into it, that could be really valuable to you, so that you get better representation. A lot to go over on that. Every person with inherent government authority within the violent crime mitigation system must gain authority from the LEA, Law Enforcement Authorization Sector Board, and pledge allegiance to the LEA leadership. So it's important to understand your pledge of allegiance to the federal Constitution, to America, to the LEA leader, because they're the one authorizing your badge. If you want that badge, you want the badge of a judge, the badge of a court, of a policeman or detective, whatever, you have to get that badge. You have to get that badge from the LEA, and a 70% vote gives you that badge, and only 40% representatives of 40% of the people can take that badge away from you. Every sector board must develop a process regarding an arrest through the end of trial that respects the civil liberties within this amendment or properly passed civil liberty rating floors. Highly important to understand that they're going to have to respect civil liberties. Respect some due process. There's going to be some norms in there They can adjust some things because they're free enterprise for more productive, more efficient, a better timeline. There's a lot of things you can adjust because you're a free enterprise, but the standards cannot fall below a certain level where you're infringing on somebody's civil liberties. So it's highly important to know what they can and cannot do. And civil liberty rating floors, which are representative bodies creating rating floors. That's every sector has a rating system, and civil liberty rating floors are going to be very important because we do not want undue influence from police officers doing the wrong things, searching without a warrant, um, um, eavesdropping on you, doing a lot of different things that they're not allowed. They can't spy on you without a warrant. There's a lot of things they can't do. So it's important. They can't rough you up. They can't torture you. They can't. There's a lot of things they can't do. Just simple civil liberties that we currently have in our current system, they have to be respected. And I have a system through rating systems, and the rating through the rating agencies, through the rating system, to create civil liberties. There's specific people that you vote for when you are saying, "I want these civil liberties protected." Well, you might vote for somebody because of education policy, or you might vote for somebody because of welfare policy. You might vote for somebody because of their war policy. Well, I want you directly voting for somebody directly because of civil liberty policy. So you get that representation that you want. And everybody gets representation. Our current system, if your candidate doesn't win, you don't get representation. And actually, if there's only two people up there and you don't like either one of them because your primary person didn't win, or there wasn't anybody running against the Republican or Democrat that ended up winning, you're not being represented. So a high majority of people are not being represented in the current system. Everybody will have a CRA and an RA to go and fight their battles for them that they pay their money to. And when you pay your money to somebody, they're going to represent you. Right now, that you have to pay taxes regardless of who you select. If I select Joe Biden, or if I select Donald Trump, if I select this governor or that governor, it doesn't matter. This is very nonpartisan. It is you. You have to pay the taxes regardless of who won, and you pay it to the winner. You pay it to the government, yes, but they get to control that money to a large degree. My system, your selection of CRA comes with that money going to your CRA, that money going to your RA, and they're going to represent you. They're going to be competing for your business, for your selection of a RA or a CRA. And that's highly important because you're going to get a lot better service from government officials when they're competing for your business, when you can go elsewhere. I'm not talking about moving geographically to another city or another state. People are doing that right now, moving away from California, moving away from New York, moving to Florida and Texas and a couple other different places. They're doing that now, but you have to move. I'm talking about without moving, within your city, within your state, within the federal government, your selection of a CRA and an RA will change your representation. You will, and where your money goes, who you're voting with, your group of people that you're voting with, and just your policies, your interest. So it's highly important to understand that. So let's keep on going. Okay, this is a big one. You can read it online. I'm going to read through it. Basically, when you are arrested for a crime, and you have to go through a system where the sector board is going to be looking after you. There's going to be grand juries. There's going to be a lot of stuff that's not going to allow the free enterprise police, the free enterprise courts, to railroad you through and be unfair to you. There's always somebody looking after you. Your identity CRA is going to be looking after you. Your judicial CRA is going to be looking after you. Your violent crime CRA is going to be looking after you. There's going to be a lot of people looking after you. Your RAs, your CRAs, there's going to be a lot of people looking after you. But the sector board is going to make sure as well that you are not going to be railroaded through, that the proper procedures are being done. So I have a lot of stuff right here, and that can be changed around. I can get some advice and get some new ideas and throw some constitutional clauses in there to make sure this works better. So, but these are some of my ideas right now. So let's keep on going. The actual trial is separated from the preceding arrest through end of trial process. So there's a sector board process where they're keeping an eye on everything. There's a judge, there's a grand jury, there's several organizations out there keep an eye on that trial and make sure you're not just sitting behind bars and waiting 2 years to be put through the court system. The right for fair and a speedy trial is going to be in there. We don't currently have that right now to a large degree. We have court cases where people sit in jail for a year or two before it goes to court, and they're sitting in jail, and they can't do anything about it. They have not been convicted. So it's not the best system right now. There's not enough accountability. This adds several layers of accountability. Current government infrastructure and assets, everything the government currently owns, is sold off to the free enterprise system or to the competitive governance. It means the courts and all the police cars, police stations, the prisons, and the whole 9 yards. So that's everything is. That the military is, the schools are, the roads are. But just to make sure everybody understands, all the prisons, all the courthouses are going to go free enterprise. So new organizations are going to buy this. Most likely it's going to be the CRAs buying it and sharing courtrooms. There's going to be cooperation, not just because, mainly because it makes sense and cost effective and everything. You want to utilize the same building, and nobody wants to take over the cost of the big building and have it underutilized. Plus, there's going to be some cooperation rating floors there saying, hey, you have to cooperate. Anyway, let's keep on going. Governments, okay, we did that one. The violent crime sector is established, so we're just going through some of the sectors, and so we understand what that is. That's dealing with defining violent crimes. Now, if it's an education crime, a finance crime, a EPA type environmental crime, if it's a insurance crime, that's dealt with separately. Violent crime is a battery, a murder, a rape, harming somebody, assault and battery and the like. But so Sector 11, this one is established, but that's assault and battery, that is harming somebody physically. The judicial branch of the victim's Sector 11 CRA must hold the trial for a violent crime. I have who's going to hold the trial per sector. That's settled within the system. Your CRAs, every transaction is going to be under a certain CRA, either yours or the person you're doing business with. The restaurant or yours or your employer, you, whoever you're doing business with, it has to be done under a CRA. So everything's settled and everything is accounted for. The executive branch of the victim's Sector 11 CRA must supply this prosecutors. So that's where the prosecutor comes from, is from the VC, violent crime sector. Your prosecutor from your CRA, even if it's somebody who's not in your CRA, if they do damage to you, they assault you, they get to your prosecutor gets to go and arrest them through this. There's a system through the sector board to make sure there's accountability. You're going through the process. You go through due process, but your prosecutor gets to go and arrest that person because they injured one of their members, which is you. The VC sector board must set a bar regarding the severity of crime for death penalty cases. Death penalty cases have a higher level of proof, so it's above a reasonable doubt. So it's more like major eyewitnesses. It's not circumstantial, and also there has to be a certain higher level of what do you want to call it? Severity of the crime, major murder, not just a crime of passion, but I don't know how to say it correctly right now. A murder that is brutal. If it meets a certain standard, then you can go for the death penalty case. So for a death penalty case, it has to be overwhelming evidence, and it has to be a high level of brutality or severity. And so there's a system there, but then it has to go quickly. If there's overwhelming evidence, we should not have to have months upon months upon months. That is an injustice to leave somebody alive when you have so much evidence that they murdered somebody. They will get a good defense. Don't get me wrong, and there's a full system where funds go to a public defender to make sure they are properly being taken care of. Their rights are being taken care of. The law enforcement sector is established, so these are the police. Law enforcement LEA is established. They authorize anybody. Now, here are the judicial sector's official clauses. Even though everything else I did that was a clause, there are official clauses, but these are the ones under the judicial authority sector. We have a lot of places where clauses are. I try to put them in the right spot, but just because it's in the rating system doesn't mean it doesn't apply to the judicial authority. It can be in the law enforcement or the law enforcement authorization sector. It still applies to it if it applies to it. So here are the judicial sector clauses. 31 minutes into it, I understand that, but I'm building a framework where you understand how we deal with the courts. The judicial sector is established, which means roughly a dozen CRAs. Between 5% and 20% of the members of the citizens have to be in a CRA. So as long as you have 5%, you can have a CRA, a court system. If you have over 20%, they have to split. So you get two roughly similar CRAs, and people choose which one to go to. You just can't have over 20% into your CRA. The purpose of the judicial authority sector is to provide a high-quality court system for America. All cases fall under a sector's jurisdiction as described in their sector's purpose and mission statement. The parent sector board legislative branch has the final determination. So that's what the parent sector board does, is decide the separation of the 30 sectors. Highly important job, but they don't get to regulate, they don't get to make laws within the sectors. They just say what sector has that authority. And the sector board might have some authority. The CRA has most of the authority. And I determine through my CRA structure and my sector board sector and my original authority section within my Constitution who has that original authority, top level authority. The Judicial Authority Sector Board must create a system of judicial warrants that respect civil liberties, properly passed as violent crime mitigation civil liberty rating floors. I know it's 7 words. Violent crime mitigation civil liberty rating floors. That deals with what the police cannot do in the realm of bringing somebody to justice. They cannot search somebody's house unless they have a warrant. They cannot unjustly what's some other ones? I'm sorry, slipping my mind right now. They cannot rough you up. They cannot do torture. They cannot violate your civil liberties. Civil liberties here are not freedom of speech, freedom of association, freedom of religion. We definitely have that, but that's a different type of civil liberty. Violent crime mitigation civil liberties is what the government is restricted from doing in their realm of taking you through the Justice Department. They have to have due process and the like. Every contract or transaction must occur under the jurisdiction of a specific CRA. A CRA's judicial branch addresses disputes. So, every CRA, every sector has a CRA. A CRA has legislative, executive, and judicial. So the judicial sector, which is the courts, does the case, tries the case. So, and it's usually done on the victims, on the victim CRA. Here that is. A clear contract assigns jurisdiction to a CRA. However, without clarity, the default jurisdictions are the seller CRA. So if you're at a store, and unless otherwise in the contract, you are going with the store's CRA. So if anything happens in there, you're going through the judicial system of the store's CRA. Now it has to be listed on the door what their ratings are, what their CRAs are. There's going to be a lot of ways to find that out. So that's one thing that you can do. The employer CRA, on the most part, is going to be the employer CRA. Employment contracts can be drawn any way they want to be. So you can do it for the employees if you want to. A subcontractor, a independent contractor, whatever you want to call it. Contracts can be written however you want, but on the most part, it's going to be the employer CRA. The victim CRA, which there's a lot to say on that, especially for the violent crime. Nobody agrees to be assaulted. I guess unless you're going through a boxing rink or whatever and you agree to box. Anyway, and the injured entity CRA. So there's a lot there, but that is giving a jurisdiction to one of the CRAs. So a CRA has, even though there's two people, and most likely they're going to, for 90% of the time, they're going to be from different CRAs. It has to go with one of them. So this is trying to clarify some of that. Every sector board must set rules regarding a dispute or injury that occurs outside of a contract or transaction. You get hit by another car by accident, there has to be that transportation sector is going to set rules up on what CRA is going to have jurisdiction on that. And it's not going to be the road company's jurisdiction to the large degree unless the road is very neglectful and causing a major harm by not repairing their roads to a significant degree or whatever the case may be. Anyway, it's usually the injured parties sector 25 CRA. The judicial branch of the victim's relevant CRA must hold the trial for disputes. So sector 25 is identity CRAs. So if it's injured party, a lot of times it's sector 25 because that's dealing with your citizenship, your ownership, your it deals with all your records from crime records, employment records, financial records, insurance records, health records. It deals with a lot of record keeping, but deals with ownership and it deals with citizenship. So your injured party sector 25 is going to come into play a large degree. Private courts regulated by judicial authority CRAs are the trial courts. So these are all private courts. Now, they better do a good job because anybody not doing a good job, they're going to be rated low. If they fall below a rating floor, they're not a court anymore. Or the LEA pulls their authority to be a court because the court has to get authorized as well. You have to have your judges authorized, your clerk of the courts authorized, your full court authorized by 70% of the people. So they can't sit there and do really low standards. And if you violate civil liberties or you do abuse, there's representative bodies to take you out. So there's a significant amounts of accountability. One accountability versus another accountability. The LEA might step back and say the rating system's going to take you out because you did abuse, or the LEA says, look, I'm not going to let you get hired on as a police officer in LA if you already abused somebody in Tennessee. We just can't have you moving around. So your history is going to follow you. And if you shouldn't be a police officer or a judge because of corruption or abuse or lack of training or bad morals and ethics, then they take away that badge. You don't authorize that badge. Let's continue on. See, cases spanning more than one CRA or more than one sector, more than one level of the CRA structure, federal, state, and local, and more than one government level may hire one private court to litigate the entire case. I understand, and I started realizing when I created this that a lot of cases involved environment, labor law, education, environment finance, and insurance, and it just had everything included. I was going to say, wow, how are we going to deal with that? Well, one court deals with it now. We're going to let one court deal with it. Now, you might get rulings from different courts in different aspects of the different case. That can happen. But it can be productive and efficient because if you're not productive and you're not efficient, people don't want to hire you. If you're slow, costly, people just don't want to hire you. They're not going to select your CRA and pay you good money when there's another CRA doing a better job out there. And the rating agencies are going to give you high quality information from a wide variety of perspectives, from the liberal, the conservative, the libertarian perspective, everyone in between. They're just going to give you a wide variety, 12 different viewpoints from the federal level, from the state level, from the local level, and even the different sectors might pipe in with some information saying, hey, this is not going well, or this is going really well. They're going to be able to say, hey, there's positive externalities. We're rating this person really high, or this business really high. This one has negative externalities. It's barely above the rating floor. People don't want to deal with you. Let's continue on. A rating system of every sector must set rating floors regarding cooperation on judicial proceedings among multiple CRAs, sector CRA levels, and CRA structures. I just talked about it from the previous clause. This one's written a little bit differently. Both of them are needed. If you want to go back and read both of them, that's fine. And you'll be able to determine why I had to have both of them in there. One's giving the option, and one's making sure there's a rating floor for cooperation to make that happen. Because we don't want one case to last 10 years when it should be lasting a couple months at the most. In most cases, we're going to drop dramatically how long CRAs or court cases go because the efficiencies of the free enterprise system. When people want a decision to be done, whether it's arbitration versus a big, long, drawn-out court case, it can be done. So let's keep on going. Let me make sure I hit this one. Okay. The rating system of every sector must set rating floors. Yep, I did that one. The sector boards or judicial branch of every sector must establish the first appellate court. So we have appellate courts. And we have a second appellate court, which is the top appellate court. It's kind of like the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court's authority is split up into about 3 or 4 different representative agencies. One rating system. There's top level. I can't get into it right now. You have to read through it. I'm probably getting a little bit wrong. I thought about it. I gave a whole bunch of different rating systems, a whole bunch of different organizations, some sector boards, parent sector boards. I gave a little bit to everybody. So there's checks and balances, and no one organization has too much power. So right now, the Supreme Court has way too much power in some aspects, and we just have to split that up, and I did. So you can look through and find out where I give certain authorities. But I think I got everything covered. The judicial authorities rating system will have an appellate court strictly dealing with corruption. So if it deals with corruption, lack of integrity, any type of abuse, any type of that, the rating system will have a court for that and can take somebody out, because we cannot have that and have a good society. We need to be able to deal with corruption or low integrity. The better we have a better society when we have higher integrity. So, but if you want to sell something with low quality, as long as you are honest about it, you can sell that thing with low quality. We're talking about lack of integrity. So, and that should be a crime because you are committing fraud. You are doing a transaction that is unfair not because you overpriced something, but because what you portrayed the value of something to be is significantly different than what you actually gave them. So it's fair to have a court system dealing with lower integrity, or the opposite of integrity, corruption, abuse, and the like. Okay, make sure I got this. Okay. The judicial authorities rating system will have an appellate court dealing strictly with corruption. I got that one fully done. Any branch of any part of the CRA structure at any level of government always has standing to bring suit. Standing is a big issue with the court system. If a court does not want to hear a case, sometimes they just say, "I don't have standing." They have a lot of ways to get out of it. Now, if you don't have a cause of action, you can the court can dismiss a case for lack of a cause of action. But if a case needs to be brought, your CRA or your RA can always have standing to bring suit. They cannot get rid of it based off standing. Lack of action, a cause of action, lack of injury, they can get rid of it for that, but not for lack of standing. The judicial branch of the judicial authority sector consists of one court that comprises one justice per judicial authority CRA. Each justice comes with their CRA's proportional vote where majority rules. However, overturning clear constitutional case law requires a 55% vote. This is an aspect of the Supreme Court. This is like the Supreme Court. So this is highly important. And we changed it around a little bit to create proportional voting, and your representative, your selection changes each of the Supreme Court's justices' power, representative power. So if one Supreme Court justice is not doing well, they're getting really bad reviews, they're not doing what you want to do, you switch CRAs, you switch RAs, and your representative power switches to another justice. So that justice that you left loses power, representative power with their opinions, and the one you switch to gains that. So if 2 or 3% of the people change, you can actually make a change. So your selection makes a difference. You are represented. The judicial branch of, so what I'm trying to say is, if you really like Ruth Ginsburg, you can select her. I know she passed away recently. If you like Tony Scalia, if you like Clarence Thomas, if you like Amy Coney Barrett, whoever you like, you can give your support behind them. Representative control. So every American can say, I like Clarence Thomas, or I like Scalia, or I like Anthony Kennedy, or Sotomayor, or Kagan. You can put your power and representative control behind any one of those. Now, the Supreme Court doesn't have as much power as they do now. I split it up. But the judicial branch of the judicial authority sector, and at that point, I think I have the federal one being, I think the state's still going to be having the most control there. So it's important to understand that states are going to be really, really important. 30% of the judicial authority sector's judicial branch may force a vote or decision within 30 days of a specific, well-defined, and narrow question to any group within the CRA structure authorized in this amendment to vote or decide. There's a lot of things that are ambiguous right now that there's just too much question on, and that's not good for society. And sometimes it goes on year after year after year without having clear understanding of what the decision is. So 30%, if 30% of the judicial authority sector, judicial branch says we need to make a decision on that, then they have to make a decision. 30 days might be a little bit too quick. If we have to move that back down to 60 or 90, then so be it. But right now it's years sometimes. That too many questions go unanswered. Now these are very specific, well-defined, and narrow questions. So let's keep on going. The judicial branch of the judicial authority sector will be an appellate court for the proper interpretation of this amendment. So there's going to be a lot of words in this amendment. The judicial branch of the judicial authority sector will be the appellate court for the proper interpretation of this amendment. So how do you interpret this amendment? The judicial branch will make that decision. The parent sector board's judicial branch will have an appellate court strictly dealing with sector jurisdiction. So that's what the parent sector board's job is. Making sure that you have the separation between the sectors. Proper lines done. So they'll have an appellate court. If somebody says no, one CRA says, and one sector says, I have this power, and another one says, I have this power. For example, the insurance regulations and the finance regulations, they're going to be separate. But you can see how they merge over, and there are going to be gray zones there. That there's going to be an appellate court that's going to put that line there. The parent sector board has to create that line, but then for proper interpretation, the judicial branch will have to follow suit and further define it if need be. Sector 15, Prison and Corrections. Okay, now we're done with that jurisdiction. Just showing that for the Violent Crime Mitigation System, there's 5 sectors in there. This is a prison one. So the Prison and Correction sector is established. I'm not going to go through all these. Okay, let's just go through this one last one. The purpose of the Prison and Correction sector is to provide prisons and corrections to people lawfully convicted of crimes and sentenced. I put that in here because they have to be lawfully convicted of crimes and sentenced by the judicial sector in order to go through the prison. The prison cannot, these are free enterprise prisons, they cannot just grab anybody off the road and put them in a prison. And so they have to be properly convicted of crimes through the court system. So that's why that's there. Okay, pretty much done with this this video now. Here's the 30 sectors. Let's see if we can look. You can see the 15 there, 15 more there. It's always important to come back here because this one's the one where it's always important to understand. You select the one that you want, the CRA that you want, the competitive governance that you want. Your neighbor picks his, lady down the street picks theirs. There's some people on your block that will pick the same one that you do, but being that there's roughly 12, there'll be between 5 and 20% of the population of your locality, of your state, or the federal government within each CRA. Highly important to understand what we're dealing with here. So everything's really easy to find out in Haley 2024. I'm going to do 2 more videos on this dealing with civil liberties, and then just a look at the courts. A look at the courts. I'm going to try to keep it a little bit shorter than this one, but just a general look at the courts and come to this same stuff, some of the same clauses, but from a different angle. But then the civil liberty ones are going to concentrate on civil liberties. A lot of that was in the rating system and how that dealt with civil liberties. And so you didn't get it on this video here, so I'll be doing more civil liberty centric dealing with the court system, and not just the court system, law enforcement and the prisons, anybody with inherent government power, they have to respect civil liberties. So please consider a donation for Haley 2024, the movements. I'm trying to get somebody to do some social media, do a little bit of advertisement to push these videos out there. Hopefully take a little bit of income for myself if I can, so I can quit my current job. I'm a salesman right now, and I just want to do this full time and push these ideas. I only want to replace half my income and then and do this full time. But right now I can't put so much time on this because I have a full-time job. Until the next video.